there was a lot of things that bugged me about the case, things that never were answered. But the one that bugged me the most is how can a guy at age 17 drop out of high school in New Orleans and join the Marines and go to language school for 6 weeks and then later immigrate to Russia, and he speaks Russian so fluently that Marina, his future wife, thinks he's a native. Now, y'all ever been to New Orleans? My sister-in-law's from New Orleans. She married my brother about nearly 45 years ago. And she's been in Huntington Beach, California for 40 of some out of them, and she still talks the same way she did when she lived in Algiers across the river. You don't lose that. Yeah. I mean, it's like when you meet an Italian or a Hungarian immigrant who came here 40 years ago. He hasn't lost his accent, has he? You know he's from Europe. You're not sure which country often, but he still has that cute little accent. Well, that bothered me for a long, long time. And then when I began to read Armstrong's work, and he spoke at one of the conferences that we attend in Dallas on occasion. I don't go every year, but I recommend it highly. There are two groups now. COPA, Coalition of Political Assassinations, has a big meeting out there, and then the old one, the Lancers, started first. But there's always some great speakers, and they every November 22nd or the weekend around the 22nd, they have a big meeting there, and great education on. They're trying to keep the case alive and poke fun at the coincidence theorist. We got a lot of coincidence theorists around the world, and I like to poke that back. Everybody wants to call me the C word, But anyway, 30 years later, Armstrong comes out with this book, and I am absolutely floored. And he has so much evidence that, first of all, I want you to know, the Lee Harvey Oswald, I always called him the skinny Oswald. He calls him Harvey. But the skinny Oswald that you and I saw, we've seen on the videos, and you older folks, when you saw Jack Ruby shoot him in the basement of the police station, that was not Lee Harvey Oswald, the son of Marguerite, born in New Orleans on October the 18th, 1939. It was a look-alike that looked so much like him that somebody, CIA, found him in New York and discovered that he was of Russian parentage, spoke absolute fluent Russian, and said, wow, I'm talking about 1953. I'm talking about 10 years earlier. He's 14 years old. And by 54, they've been brought together. Now, apparently his name was put out on the circuit because they didn't have the computers and stuff in those days, but they sent his picture around, and people like Guy Bannister in New Orleans, the retired FBI guy who ended up being Oswald's handler and was very much throughout the Kennedy conspiracy books. Guy Bannister said, yeah, we got a guy that looks like him. And that's obviously how they ended up, the two of them in New Orleans. They were in junior high school in New Orleans at the same time. For a short time, they were in the same junior high school. But they kept them separated, and when Lee, the Oswald, I called him the muscular one. He was the real Marine. He had a fuller head of hair. He had a little bit more of a bull neck, but except for that, he and the skinny Oswald. Oh, and by the way, they made a composite photo. They cut the photos, the two of them, right down vertically, right through the face. And they took the left side of Lee and the right side of Harvey and put them together. And Jack White, photographic expert in Fort Worth, Texas, proved this. And except for a slight differential here at the chin where it was a little bit off center, didn't quite fit, and one chin was a little bit pointy and one was a little bit rounder. And except for a slight piece at the top where the hairline was just a little bit off at the top of his forehead, it was a perfect job. It was a perfect composite photo. And after the assassination and Harvey got out of the building, ran back to the rooming house at 1026 Beckley, North Beckley, and he ran in the house and was only there for a minute. He stuck a .38 revolver in his belt, he put on a jacket, and the housekeeper, Earlene Roberts, was sitting there watching television, and saw him run in and run out and saw him at the bus station, the bus stop across the street. And looked at her watch and it was 1:04. Now the first official report that went in to the police call was at 1:07 that a policeman was down. That was J.D. Tippit. And they later blamed it on Lee, or on Harvey Oswald. Now, he was out here at the bus stop. I've walked it from Beckley to the scene at 10th and Patton, where the cop was shot, and it's just over a mile. So that means that this guy in street clothes broke the world record in the mile. He ran it in 3 minutes. Pretty good. And then, after shooting the cop, Tippit, this is the official story, he emptied his gun with shells on the street. Brilliant. And then he runs down to the Texas Theater and he sneaks in, and the next thing we know, there's about 20 police cars all over the place because a guy failed to pay a 50-cent ticket for a movie. And I mean, they had to go capture him. And so these sorts of things, you know, they bug you until you put the picture together like Armstrong did. And I'm telling you, he will wear you out with detail. He will be so convincing that these kids were together. He's got so much evidence and so many personal stories and these records and these school book cards and these report cards. And, I mean, you want to say, okay, I believe you. Get on with it. Give me something else. I mean, it is so convincing, the evidence that he gives it, that you cannot doubt that there were two Oswalds. Well, when you put two of them in the picture, now it makes sense. And the woman who's, I tried to find her. She's 80-something years old. Is she still alive? Can't call her name now offhand, but she was one of the employment agents at the State Employment Agency in October of '63. And when Oswald came in to apply for the job, that she later got him at the school book depository. And she said that he was kind of slovenly, and he was not rude, but not very polite, and not very kind, and not very happy. And a week later, apparently, to test, it's the only explanation I can give you. The first one, obviously, was Harvey, but then they sent Lee in. Lee went back for the second interview. Now, this is really being brazen, but she knew immediately this was not the same man. But she said how much they did look alike. But she said he was spit and polish, and he was yes ma'am, no ma'am, and she even liked the guy. Well, it's pretty obvious that was Lee the second time, and I can't imagine why they would do that except maybe to test to see how well they could get by with it. Well, Harvey gets the job. Harvey's the one who ran away and after the assassination and went to Beckley and got the gun. Now, we have a picture. In fact, Jim Mars has this picture in his book, I believe. Wasn't that your book, Jim, where they showed the picture of the I know you've seen it, the detective on the street where Jack White blew it up, and he's looking in the wallet next to the Tippit car, the Tippit murder, and there's the ID of Lee Harvey Oswald and Alec Heidel. He carried, it was the same picture, but now Alec Heidel, for those of you who are students of the story, was the one who ordered the rifle, the 12.95 rifle from the Chicago wholesale house. And it was shipped to an FBI-controlled post office box to Alec Heidel. Well, here this guy that shoots Tippit, allegedly, empties the gun on the street, also throws down his wallet. But, he wants to, he won't need that anymore. And there's the picture of the cop, and Jack White magnified it and blew it way up. And there's the ID of Lee Harvey Oswald, it's a split face. And also, on the other side is the ID of Alec Heidel. Same picture, just two different names. Well, that's not too startling until we get over to the Texas Theater a half an hour later. And they're bringing out Harvey Oswald, the skinny one I call him, and he's in handcuffs, and he's protesting, and they throw him in a police car. And the same detective pulls out the wallet that he's carrying, and there's the same two IDs. Second, he said, wait a minute, we just got this, we just found this on the street. Now he's carrying the same, of course, now that was very, very hushed. That was not reported anywhere, except unless you get into some of the books and do the research that, like Mr. Mars has.